Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I'm guessing that many of you do not know this, but there was another dump of 100 pages from the FBI yesterday relating to the investigation of Hillary Clinton. And folks, I'm here to tell you, there is no way this woman ought to be anywhere near the Oval Office. She ought not be anywhere near the White House. I don't care what Donald Trump's faults are. I don't care what people think of Donald Trump. This woman has no business. I can't believe, after looking at these documents, and I could do the whole program on these, and who knows, I might. This is astounding what the FBI dumped yesterday. Why this hasn't been dumped earlier is obvious. It is damning. It is destroying of Hillary Clinton. As a person, as a Secretary of State, I go through all these emails. Have any of you who've spent any time going through any of the emails, part of the WikiLeaks dump, are you seeing anybody that works for her talk about what a nice person she is? I am not. I see references to friends of Bill that need this and friends of Bill that need that. I don't see any references to friends of Hillary. I'm reading a bunch of people who are doing what they can to advance this woman's career because it is their job and because through her they maybe get to advance what their agenda is. But I'm here to tell you, there doesn't appear any personal attachment beyond Huma Abedin in any of these, including Podesta. You know, Podesta is actually a Bill guy. Podesta was Bill's chief of staff, sent over there, runs the Center for American Progress, a leftist think tank, and is now over there steering the Hillary campaign. I'm telling you, folks, it's incredible. In this 100 pages, it makes me, and most of it's redacted. The stuff that they haven't redacted is damning. It makes Watergate look like Romper Room. And I'm wondering, what in the hell were they doing at the FBI when they decided none of this was actionable? This goes so far beyond quid pro quo. Of course, that's a big, big deal. But all the stories that we heard back when the Clintons were in the White House about Hillary disliking the Marines, disrespecting the Marines, throwing ashtrays. Apparently it's true because she did it at the State Department. She was so mean to people that State Department security agents, which they have, every bureaucracy has security agents that travel with the ambassadors, with Secretary of State. None of them wanted to work for her. They all quit. Over the 4-year time she was in the Secretary of State's office, none of them, the people that ended up on her detail, were brand new and had no idea they were the last ones to go there because everybody else begged off because she was just plain and simple, mean and rude and disrespectful. She was violating protocol at every turn. As an example, one of the apparent protocols is that when the Secretary of State's traveling, you get off the plane and you always join the ambassador to whatever country you're in. The ambassador gets in a limo with you. It's a security thing, too, from the airport into the embassy or wherever you're going. In other words, when you get off the plane and you go to a foreign country, you are joined at the hip with our ambassador. She never would do it. The only person allowed to get close to her is Huma Abedin. And whoever this guy that runs around with her, this big, big black guy who is there rubbing her back and telling her, just keep talking, just keep breathing. He's obviously some medic, and he's constantly around her. And other than this guy and Huma Abedin, she just blows off everybody and everything. You can't find any references, or very few, to people with any affection for her. They're all working for her. And they're all trying to rig the game for her, but there doesn't seem to be any affection. It's amazing what's in these 100 pages alone, and these are from the FBI. This is not WikiLeaks. This is not the result of a hack. They can't say that the Russians are behind this. Now, you aren't probably, I don't think that any of this is going to end up in the drive-by media, because they are part of this. There are, well, that's part of the WikiLeaks dump too, but reporters sending their stories to John Podesta for vetting before they're published. Hey, John, one guy, Glenn Thrush from Politico, says, look, now that I've become a hack, parentheses for you guys, I've got this story, I've written it out, here it is, make sure it's right before I run with it. This is happening constantly. Not just recently, but constantly with Mrs. Clinton. And he's not the only one. All of them. Practically everybody in the mainstream media is on her team and coordinating with her and her campaign about how to do stories, what stories to do, what to leave out of them, and so forth. I mean, there isn't any question all of this is rigged. Even George Will, who despises the Trumpster, had to admit that Trump's right about this. And the evidence that George Will cites, we have it coming up in the sound bites, is these people, the Democrats, go to the end of the earth, the end of the world, to prevent voter registration rolls from being purged of dead people. The Democrats do everything they can to ensure that people who are dead or illegal immigrants or whatever are on voter registration rolls. That alone rigs the game. Anyway, greetings, and great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here behind the golden EIB microphone, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address, lrushlimbaugh at eibnet.us. The syllabic memory, lrushlimbaugh at eibnet.us. That's the new email address. The James O'Keefe Project Veritas video that we referenced yesterday, it's even more outrageous than what I knew at the time. I had time to look at it now and study it. All these Trump protests and rallies where people were causing violence, they were all bought and paid for protesters by the Democrat Party. And O'Keefe found a couple of people bragging about it, how they do it. They even recruit the homeless. They recruit the homeless and pay them from union money and get them to go in and cause trouble inside Trump rallies, outside Trump rallies. They're out there taking credit for getting a Trump rally canceled in Chicago. Trump's exactly right. All of this is rigged. All of this, it's not rigged. Rigged is not, it's all coordinated. Everything you think is happenstance, everything your average citizen thinks is just the news of the day, it's all coordinated. It's all scripted. And they're all working together on it. Virtually any organization that has any ties to the Democrat Party, and thus to the Clinton campaign, coordinates with the Clinton campaign, and this includes the drive-by media. Now, I don't know when it was, but I am going to stake claim to being the first to refer to Hillary Clinton as Nurse Ratched. The nurse, the evil, bullying, mean-spirited nurse from the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And it was about the same time as we concocted the whole notion of the Hillary Clinton testicle lockbox to indicate that men were rendered powerless, afraid, and cowering squishes of human mass when Hillary got mad at them. Well, it turns out that Hillary has a new ad that is running on her website and Twitter feed. It's entitled America's Bully, where she compares Trump to various movie bullies. Here's a portion of it.
What, are you going to cry now?
Don't be so gullible, McFly.
You sit down.
Sit down. They are talking to Trump, and the woman that says, you sit down, that's Nurse Ratched. So Hillary is comparing Trump to Nurse Ratched. When everybody knows Hillary is Nurse Ratched, I did that. I was the first to do it way, way, way back in the 90s during the first Clinton administration. So last night, they were discussing this ad on CNN. Aaron Burnett out front. Jeffrey Lord was on from the American Spectator, and the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucasians, Angela Rye, R-Y-E. And they were talking about Hillary's new campaign ad. So Aaron Burnett plays the ad, and then she says, does that help Hillary Clinton, Jeff? Or does that actually reinforce what Trump wants, which is, yeah, I can be a nasty guy, but I'm a strong guy?
You notice the reference in there to Nurse Ratched. Rush Limbaugh, back in the 90s, started referring to Hillary Clinton as Nurse Ratched. This has been around out there for decades, and I think correctly that and I checked with him tonight, he believes he's the first person to have gone there with this. For her to try and make this, to bring this up in the context of Donald Trump, I mean, this isn't going to fly. I mean, you've got Juanita Broaddrick out there saying she's the bully. So, man, I just would stay away from this entirely.
I think that probably only Rush Limbaugh listeners know that. I certainly didn't know it.
20 million of us, though.
Well, that's pretty good. You better hope all of you turn out.
Yeah, you better hope all of you turn out. So Angela Rye, the director of Congressional Black Caucasians, had no idea that I had said this because she didn't know anybody else knew it because she didn't listen to the program. And so Jeff said, well, there's 20 million of us out there. Well, okay, cool. Well, you better hope you all turn out. There you are. I just wanted to share it with you because it's somewhat funny. This remains an important point, too. In the second hour of yesterday's program, something set me off, and I don't know what it might have been an email. It might have been a discussion about Trump and how he's fighting back, and it's looking bad. And I just, if you were listening, you knew that I get fired up, and I made the point, folks. It doesn't matter who the Republicans nominate. This is always going to happen. Every Republican nominee is going to be destroyed. They're going to make up things about him, and I look at if they can make a walking Satan out of Mitt Romney. They can do it to anybody, and they've tried. They did it to John McCain. They tried to George H.W. Bush. Certainly did it to George W. Bush. They tried over and over again with Reagan. There isn't a Republican nominee that they are not going to demonize. So what's different here is that Trump is fighting back, and this is what it looks like. And it's very important for people to understand. This is the first time anybody on our side's ever fought back against any of this, and this is what it looks like. And the next soundbite, Steve Ducey, he happened to be driving around. He's Fox and Friends. He happened to be driving around yesterday afternoon and heard it, and a light went off. This is why it's important. It doesn't automatically occur to people that what Trump is doing is fighting back. A lot of people think Trump's making himself look bad. Trump's doing a response that's not helpful and so forth, and that's not the way to look at this. The Republican primary voters had grown weary of nominating and electing people that were not going to fight back against any of this defamation and slander and libel against all of us. And Trump is. And that's why his supporters are not abandoning it. I said, if you're going to get into a battle with the establishment and you're going to try to beat them, this is what it looks like. It looks like a brawl. It must look like a brawl because that's what it is. The only way we have any chances to fight back against this stuff is to literally fight back against it, which is what Trump's doing. You may not like the way he chooses to do it. You might think he goes out of focus now and then, but he's still fighting back against all of it. He doesn't take any of it, which is what Republican primary voters and general election voters have maintained they have wanted for 3 election cycles now. So here's a guy doing it. And even though it's obvious, it isn't. It needs to be said so that people remember, because the drive-bys have the ability to characterize what this is as an unhinged guy who has no business being in politics. It's embarrassing. It's untoward. It's just, ooh, how low have our politics gotten? No. This is what it looks like when you fight back against people slandering you, when you fight back against people libeling you, when you fight back against people who are trying to destroy you. That's what it looks like. So Ducey was among the millions driving around, and I just wanted to share his reaction with you.
I was listening to a little of Rush Limbaugh yesterday when I was driving home, and he was making the point mainstream media is going to beat up whoever the Republican nominee is, and has historically. This is the first time the nominee, Donald Trump, actually is fighting back. If somebody's going to put something out there that he says is not true, he's going to fight back, and that's what we're seeing.
Right, but that's not what people are saying. People are saying, because the media is telling them what they're saying, some unhinged, unqualified, doesn't belong in this place lunatic is what they're trying to say that Trump is. This is what anybody would look like fighting. Look, the Democrats take this to the sewer. The Hillary campaign, the American left, they take the campaign to the sewer, and if you're going to respond, that's where you're going to be. You know, the old arguments, don't get into an argument with a pig because you can't, or a fool, because after a while people won't be able to tell the difference. But Trump chooses to respond. This is what it looks like. You can do one of two things. Trump can campaign and not respond to any of it, and people get mad and all this defamation goes by unanswered, or Trump reacts to it. I think it's classic to demand a drug test. I think it's classic. Everybody else thinks, oh, my God, Oh, my God, like Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, out there, you know how he's reacted to that? Yeah, well, it makes sense. Trump snorted his way through the first two debates. The drug test business is just Trump's way of saying everybody knows this woman is not healthy. And they're doing something to get her vertical for 90 minutes every one of these debates. This woman has seizures. This woman can't get into a van by herself. This woman is not healthy. She's had concussions or has Coke bottle glasses. It's his way of trying to rile her up. It's his way of trying to impugn her. Hey, they do this kind of stuff all the time, and nobody says anything about it other than, well, this biased media won't examine it. But when Trump responds in kind, oh, this is so horrible. But this is what it looks like. It's what it's always going to look like. And if you don't have the stomach for this, then you really may not have the stomach for fighting back against the establishment. Now, are there better ways it could be done? Probably. I don't know. But nobody else has tried. Can you name for me anybody else has really tried to hit back over any of this criticism? Romney never tried to hit back. McCain never tried to hit back. Bush never tried to hit back. George H.W. Bush never tried to hit back. None of the other Republicans that have been assaulted have ever tried to hit back. This is the first. Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater. And they hated him, too. We'll be back after this. I just saw the clock. Many of you have probably forgotten some of the things I tried on Romney. One of the things Romney did, just to show you how pathetic this was, Romney went out and was a garbage man for a whole day to find out what the job was like. Why did he do that? Because they had been saying that Mitt Romney was a rich guy who didn't care about little people. And when little people who worked for him, their wives got cancer and died, Romney didn't care. He didn't care about the family dog. So Romney went out and acted as a garbage man for a day. You know what the media did? The media found the garbage truck that actually worked Romney's house. And they found the guys that drove the garbage truck. And they interviewed them. Does Mr. Romney ever come out of the house and hug you? Has Mr. Romney ever tipped you? Has Mr. Romney ever come out of the house just to say hi? Has Mr. Romney ever thanked you? And, of course, the answer to every question was no. So the media says, so Romney, obviously working as a garbage man, is a phony effort to make you think he's one of you when he's not, because he's real garbage man. He's never even talked to. He's never tipped him. He's never this. Now, you tell me, how does any of that matter, and to whom have they ever tried stuff like that on the Democrat side? Never. So part of hammering Trump, I'm telling you, part of hammering Trump and never letting up on it is if he loses, and if he loses big, they want to send a message, this is what happens if you fight back. They're trying to make sure nobody ever tries this on them, the Democrats, ever again. Hi, welcome back. Great to have you, El Rushbo, behind the golden EIB microphone. Executing assigned host duties flawlessly while executing assigned host duties flawlessly. And meeting and surpassing all audience expectations. Okay, now to the FBI document dump, and it's 100 pages, and it's dynamite. It is just astounding, folks. You look at this and you wonder, how in the world did this woman not get charged? How in the world was there not an... How in the world did this not get sent to the grand jury? Of course, we know President Obama didn't want it. He didn't want any of it going anywhere because he's implicated in it. He lied. He said he learned about Hillary's private server while watching the news, just like all of us, except that's not true. He was regularly communicating with her via her private server and all this suspicious email activity using a fake name, a pseudonym, if you will. He was fully aware, and that's why to go after her would have included him, and not going to happen. I did as much looking into this as I could. And I had to tell you, John Hindrocker at Powerline has probably put together the best summary of this. Yesterday, the FBI released another 100 pages relating to its investigation of Hillary Clinton's conduct as Secretary of State. This was not just an investigation that was limited to her emails and server. by definition, it ended up including her conduct as Secretary of State. Why it has taken so long for the FBI to review, to redact, and publish. I mean, 100 pages is a small quantity. It's dynamite. What's in these 100 pages, even what is not redacted, is dynamite. But the question, why it has taken so long for the FBI to review, to redact, and publish 100 pages is inexplicable. But the pages that were released yesterday are explosive. Big time explosive. Folks, it's serious stuff. And it all, you can't conclude anything other. This woman ought not be anywhere near the levels of power. This woman is as corrupt as anybody. This makes Watergate, as I say, look like Romper Room. Now, you may have seen headlines that Hillary's State Department tried to pressure the FBI to say that various documents located on her home server were not classified. That was critical. It is critical, obviously, because one of Hillary's lines of defense was to claim, falsely as it turned out, that she never sent or received classified documents on her off-the-books email system. She said that in her first press conference that she held at the UN, and she said it subsequent times. Well, I never dealt with. I never sent or received classified documents. That was a mistake. I'll never do it again. I've learned from it, but I never sent classified documents. But to get the full impact, you have to see the relevant portions of the FBI investigation, and they're all here in all cases. They've been published. And I'm going to just read to you a so-called executive summary of them. In the first page, an unidentified FBI employee says that he was pressured to change the classification of an email to render it unclassified. The pressure came from someone within the FBI. This is in FBI documents. This is not somebody's speculation. It was in what was released yesterday. You remember now, she has denied trafficking in classified documents, sending or receiving. And yet, in one of the pages yesterday, an unidentified FBI employee says he was pressured by someone within the FBI to change the classification of an email to render it unclassified. This person within the FBI, who said he had been contacted by Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy, who had asked his assistance in altering the email's classification in exchange for a quid pro quo. This, you may see people denying this left and right at the State Department. It's in the FBI documents. It happened. Somebody within the FBI called over to State, talked to Patrick Kennedy, and asked for his help in changing the classification of the email in exchange for a quid pro quo. And what was the quid pro quo? The quid pro quo was that if the FBI would say the email was unclassified, the State Department would allow the FBI to place more agents in countries where they are presently forbidden. The interviewee, subsequent to that, was summoned to an all-agency meeting at the State Department to discuss the classification review of the Hillary Clinton emails. This fact, and that's what it is astonishing. The meeting was attended by representatives of the State Department, the CIA, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and other government agencies, including the FBI. So you had an all-agency meeting at the State Department to discuss reviewing the classification of Hillary Clinton's emails and changing from classified to unclassified, with all of these government agencies at the meeting. Patrick Kennedy, State Department, presided over the meeting. Somebody asked whether any of the Hillary emails that were being reviewed for production were classified. Kennedy said, well, we'll see. Meaning, when we get through here, after we've declassified a bunch of them, probably not. So they had classified emails, agency-wide meeting with all of these different elements of the government to discuss declassifying certain Hillary emails. Why would they do that? To protect her, to protect them, to protect Obama. There were classified emails. She was trafficking in classified email on her unsecure server that she had lied about and denied doing, that Obama claimed he knew nothing about when he did. And so it was an all-agency meeting where they circle the wagons, and after the fact, they're going to change from classified to unclassified, email by email by email, in exchange for a quid pro quo for the FBI. Following that meeting, Undersecretary of State Kennedy, Patrick Kennedy, renewed his effort to pressure the FBI to change its classification of the document in question. The FBI representative would not budge. The FBI said, no, we are not going to help you declassify this classified document. So Patrick Kennedy at State asked who else at the agency, FBI, he could talk to. And the interviewee gave the name of Michael Steinbach. All of this was in these 100 pages dumped yesterday. The interviewee then participated in a call between Patrick Kennedy, the State Department, and Steinbach, in which Kennedy continued to pressure the FBI to change the classified markings on the email to unclassified. Steinbach of the FBI refused. What happened next deserves to be a bombshell. Prior to ending this conversation, Kennedy of the State Department asked whether the FBI or the State Department would conduct the public statements on the matter. Steinbach advised Kennedy, Steinbach FBI, Kennedy State, Steinbach advised Kennedy that the FBI would not comment publicly on any of this. Well, I mean, folks, right there is corruption admitted to. Here you had an all-agency meeting to discuss the declassification of an email in order to protect Hillary's claim that she had not trafficked in them. And everybody at the meeting admits to and knows what's going on. And the FBI says, don't worry, we're not going to talk about it. We will not. Told Kennedy, Steinbach of the FBI told Kennedy, we would not comment publicly on the matter. Meaning, whatever you do, nobody's going to know about it. We're not going to blow the whistle on you. Whatever you do, go ahead. We're not talking. That was enough for the astonishingly corrupt Hillary Clinton. What happened next? The conference call ended, and according to the Associated Press, the AP published the story within the hour. Former Secretary of State Clinton appeared in front of the press shortly thereafter to deny having sent classified emails on her private server. So before she goes out and speaks, they have this agency-wide meeting to declassify something classified. It ends up happening in exchange for quid pro quos. The FBI sitting in on the meeting says, no, okay, we're not going to say a word. That's the signal to Hillary to go out and lie that she had never sent classified emails on her private email server. What you have here, folks, is a clear pattern of corruption that, as I say, makes Watergate look like romper room. Hillary's aide at the State Department, Patrick Kennedy, tried to bribe the FBI with the promise of a quid pro quo, tried to bribe the FBI to change the classification. It was a Benghazi document, by the way. What's being discussed here is a Benghazi document. So Patrick Kennedy, Hillary's aide, tried to bribe the FBI to change the classification of a Benghazi document so as to enable Hillary to lie and say that she did not send or receive classified information on her illegal home server. The FBI refused. James Comey was not involved at this stage, by the way. This was before the serious investigation even began, but they learned of it. Comey learned of all this later on. He wasn't involved at this point. Hillary's aide then asked whether the FBI would be saying anything public about the classification issue, what they just had, the all-agency meeting. Once assured the FBI would be silent, Steinbach said, don't worry, we're not saying a word. Hillary took the stage and alleged publicly and falsely that she never used her illegal home server to send or receive classified information. They had just taken a classified document and agreed to declassify it just because they needed to for her, not because it deserved to be. It was still a classified bit of information, but they declassified it, enabling her to go out and lie. This is just one document. How many critically important documents have been given the same treatment, have been discussed in the same way? The State Department has put some documents, archived them way back down in the basement. No one may ever see them again. Folks, this is just one element of what's in this 100-page dump. But this story illustrates the full-fledged corruption of Hillary Clinton's State Department working with the FBI in order. She says she never trafficked in classified data, sending it or receiving it. She said that after an agency-wide meeting, an all-agency meeting, in which a document about Benghazi was declassified. Richard Nixon only dreamed of this kind of stuff. On the surface, it may not sound like it's that big a deal. When treated to governments doing things, our government, especially in private, prying eyes don't see it. She's been lying through her teeth. Everybody on her side, everybody has been lying about what went on. They've been trying to maintain the idea that she'd ever trafficked in classified documents. She did. She knew she did. She knew she was lying about it. She corrupted a whole bunch of agencies to collude and get together to change the classification on her behalf so that she could go out and lie. She was enabled as a liar, with the mass participation of a bunch of other government agencies. Got to take a brief time out. We'll be back. Guess what, my friends? Obama's got a press conference, or just finished one, with the Prime Minister of Italy in the Rose Garden. He was asked about what I just shared with you. Question by Kevin Freaking of the AP. Maybe it's fracking. Either way. Mr. President, does it distress you that folks at the FBI and State Department talked about the proper level of classification of emails that were on Secretary Clinton's server? Would you acknowledge the appearance of impropriety, and should the State Department officials look into this further?
You've heard directly from both the FBI and the State Department that the notion or the accounts that have been put out there are just not true. And you can question them again, but based on what we have seen, heard, learned, some of the more sensational implications or appearances, as you stated them, aren't based on actual events and based on what actually happened. And I think derived from sort of overly broad characterizations of interactions between the State Department and the FBI that happen a lot and happen between agencies.
He's flat out calling everybody involved in this a liar. He's saying it never happened. The evidence is from the FBI, documents released from the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's conduct as Secretary of State, deriving from and originating with her email server. So here's Mr. Obama, who told us that he didn't know about any of this until he heard about it on the news, which is a lie because he was emailing Mrs. Clinton. By definition, everything he sends is classified. Everything the president sends, everything he writes, it's classified at origin by virtue of the fact he's sending it. I didn't know till I read about it in the news, just like all of you. He was using a fake name. The man who said, you like your doctor, keep your doctor. You like your plan, keep your plan. The man that told you your premiums are going to be reduced $2,500. The man has lied, I don't know how many times, about how many things. He and Hillary are in a race to see who's the king or queen of lying. Plus, we know this is a corrupt bunch. And so he's just called everybody in. Oh, they have these interagency meetings all the time. These all-agency meetings, these rivalries. They've already denied it. The allegations were not even made. The information comes from the FBI in a 100-page document dump yesterday, and he just called everybody involved a liar. It isn't true. They said it didn't happen. Come on, folks. Come on. We know what's going on here and what's going down. For the record, ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 people, at least 4 people, who have talked about the pressure to take a classified Benghazi document and make it unclassified. 2 of the people at the FBI, 2 of the people at the State Department, 4 people independently have said they were pressured to do this. Barack Obama has just called them liars as well. Sit tight. Much more coming up. Well, there seems to be some confusion where these 100 pages came from. They are official. And the best I have been able to determine is that the FBI released these 100 pages that everybody's talking about. Some people, well, I usually am. But some people are saying, no, the FBI didn't officially do it. Somebody at the FBI did it because they're ticked off. And they think Hillary should be arrested. And in other words, somebody's trying to tell me that a rogue element released the documents. Everything I've seen said the FBI itself did this. And that Comey was not aware or involved. Not always. Comey wasn't involved in this all-agency meeting that took place. Look, let me summarize this. Welcome back, folks. Rush Limbaugh here at 800-282-2882 and try to tell you why this matters. This is standard operating procedure for Bill and Hillary Clinton. This is a woman who destroyed subpoenaed documents in a court case way back in the 90s. These are the people that hid billing records and other relevant documents sought by a court for years that mysteriously turned up on a table in the map room in the White House during their first term in the White House. And then the whole Lewinsky scandal happened, and we know how everything was if it hadn't been for that blue dress. Seriously, folks, I'm not trying to be funny here. If it hadn't been for that blue dress, Bill Clinton would have gotten away with saying, I never had sex with that woman, not a single time, not ever, and I never asked anybody to lie. He would have gotten away with that. We would have never known the truth. If it hadn't been for the fact that Linda Tripp, I think it was, convinced Lewinsky to give up that blue dress. And she kept the blue dress because it was historical, it was a souvenir. She loved the guy. And having his semen was, I guess, a memento. So there it was. This is how the Clintons operate. They accuse. This is a woman who was thrown off the Nixon Watergate Committee. As a Democrat lawyer, she was thrown off by Peter Rodino, the chairman, because she was trying to engender things that would deny Nixon and his legal team constitutional rights during the Watergate investigation. This woman is every bit the Alinskyite that Barack Obama is. She was an Alinskyite before Obama was. Her thesis when she was at Wellesley was on Alinsky. But the woman is dishonest. She is dishonest and she is corrupt. Look at the Clinton Foundation. This is an organization set up to take donations, excuse me for a second, to take donations in the multiple millions of dollars from foreign governments and foreign wealthy individuals while she was Secretary of State and while she's campaigning for president. Now, folks, there's people giving the Clintons money are not doing it because they like her. They're not giving her $300,000 to make speeches at banks because, wow, she says such interesting things. They are buying the Clintons. They are buying access because the Clintons have made it known their entire public life they can be bought. The Clintons do not do much of anything above board. I need to take a swig here. And, of course, can't allow any dead air, so pardon me a minute here. I'm sorry, folks, but you have to do that. Dead air can trigger some of our stations to go to commercial break. I can't permit that, so pardon the rudeness. It's kind of like rattling the paper. At any rate, So there's a history, a documented history. Now, if you're a millennial, do you know what I saw about millennials the other day? It was last night doing show prep for today. Millennials do not know of the existence and the nature and the truth of Soviet communism. It's not been taught to them. So Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall, the Berlin Wall falling, the Cold War and its meaning and relevance all during the 60s, irrelevant to them. They simply don't know. They haven't been taught about it. And that's, of course, by design. If you're not going to teach communism, if you're not going to teach what it really is, it makes selling socialism easy, which is exactly what they've done. Same token here. These millennials, a young group of people, do not know of the Clintons of the 90s. To you and me, we know it like the back of our hands. But young people don't. And some low information people don't as well. So in addition to all of the things, starting with Whitewater, all moving forward, and it's everything the Clintons have done, well, I say everything, vast majority of what the Clintons have done has had many purposes, but at the top of the list is personal enrichment. Personal. Do you know that she also stole furniture from the State Department when she left? That's in this document dump. She stole furniture from the State Department when she left, just like they stole furniture from the White House when they left. She just picked up and took what she wanted. Violates all kinds of protocols, would not hang around with ambassadors, would not travel with them, would not give them the perk of appearing with the Secretary of State, would not let them fly in a plane, would not let them ride in a limousine. Only Huma Abedin was allowed body contact. Nobody else was. The security agents for the State Department all wanted to quit her detail. She was so rude, mean, disrespectful, none of them wanted to work for her over the course of her 4-year term as Secretary of State, which comports with everything we'd heard about the way she treated Secret Service agents in the White House and Marines and other uniformed military personnel. The woman is a viper. And she's dishonest and corrupt. And it's the way of the world in that world the Clintons occupy. So just to review, 100 pages released by the FBI yesterday clearly detail an all-agency meeting wherein the State Department and a guy named Patrick Kennedy attempted to persuade other government agencies, including the FBI and the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and others, to go along with changing the classification of, in this case, one particular document detailing Benghazi from classified to unclassified, so that Mrs. Clinton could go out and do a press conference and claim that she had never trafficked in classified information. And in exchange for doing this, the FBI was offered, in exchange for doing this, an increased presence in foreign countries to do investigations and other things. The FBI does have presence in foreign. You remember when the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia were blown up. The FBI is right there investigating because U.S. American citizens were dead. So the FBI can go, but they are limited in what they can do. State Department has purview. So a carrot was dangled that allowed the FBI a little bit more access and power in exchange for going along with declassifying a classified document. 4 people, 2 state, 2 FBI, have added to what's in these 100 pages, claiming they were pressured to go along with this. Now, President Obama just had a press conference, concluded recently at the White House with the Italian Prime Minister, in which he was asked about this. Now, there's 2 sound bites. I played one. I'm going to play it again. And then the second bite, because they go together. So here's the question, Mr. President. Does it distress you that people at the FBI and the State Department talked about proper level of classification of emails that were on Secretary Clinton's server? Would you acknowledge the appearance of impropriety? And should the State Department look into this further?
You've heard directly from both the FBI and the State Department that the notion or the accounts that have been put out there are just not true. And you can question them again, but based on what we have seen, heard, learned, some of the more sensational implications or appearances, as you stated them, aren't based on actual events and based on what actually happened. And I think derived from sort of overly broad characterizations of interactions between the State Department and the FBI that happen a lot and happen between agencies.
The short version of that is, it didn't happen. It's all made up. Not true. These things happen all the time. And people say one thing. So he's denied calling people liars. This is in an FBI document dump. This is not something that some right-wing website found and is publishing. This is from the Obama FBI. And he's claiming everybody involved. And there are independent people, as I say, 4 others who are claiming they have been pressured to go along with the declassification of classified documents on Mrs. Clinton's server. I can imagine some of you, Rush, what does it matter? There's so many other things. What does it matter? It matters because, folks, it's a culmination of things. The cumulative effect of behavioral patterns here that indicate this woman is dishonest, is corrupt, and has no business even taking the oath of office because she cannot honestly do it. She has no business being president of the United States. She uses the power that you get as a elected official or appointed official at the upper echelons of U.S. government to artificially alter and change things in her favor outside of courts of law, things that no one else could do or try to, and things for which we have forced a president to resign simply because he thought he wanted to. Richard Nixon and Watergate, that's nothing compared to what has actually gone on here. But it gets better. During the same press conference, the Reuters White House correspondent says Donald Trump is telling his supporters the election's rigged, and he's asking them to monitor certain areas on Election Day. How concerned are you about the potential for violence? And what about after Election Day? Are you worried the results of the election may be distrusted?
I have never seen in my lifetime or in modern political history any presidential candidate trying to discredit the elections and the election process before votes have even taken place. It's unprecedented. It happens to be based on no facts. Every expert, regardless of political party, regardless of ideology, conservative or liberal, who has ever examined these issues in a serious way will tell you that instances of significant voter fraud are not to be found.
It's not true, folks.
Really show the kind of leadership and toughness that you'd want out of a president. You start whining before the game's even over. So I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
Right. So, see, Republicans are supposed to wait until the Democrats steal elections and then complain about it. But here, once again, Trump's out. We all know that voter fraud goes on. We all know that dead people vote. We all know that Democrats oppose voter ID. We know that Democrats oppose purging the voter registration rolls. We know the Democrats want amnesty for illegal immigrants to put them on voter registration rolls. We know all of this. We know that the Democrats have gone to great lengths to prevent steps that would ensure fair elections. And you talk about, are you worried that there might be suppression? Does anybody remember Philadelphia? And the new Black Panther Party standing outside a polling place, intimidating people into not showing up, into not going in, unless they were going to vote for Obama. That episode was proceeding along the way towards a conviction. And then the FBI, I should say the Department of Justice, Eric Holder, dropped the case. And the lawyers in that division, the Civil Rights Division, resigned. J. Christian Adams resigned. He quit over the reluctance of the Department of Justice to pursue legitimate voter fraud on behalf of Democrats. So again, I say this is what it looks like. This is what fighting back looks like. This is what accusing perpetrators looks like. Of course, they're not going to roll over and admit it. So here the president in a press conference, ostensibly to signify great relations with the Italian prime minister, calls everybody involved this all-agency meeting on declassifying Hillary Clinton's emails a lie. It didn't happen. Nobody should believe this. And then the next question allows him to go after Donald Trump for making it all up about voter fraud. He's never seen anything like it. And here come the phantom straw men, experts, political experts from all parties, political experts from all ideologies, political experts from everywhere. That's not true. There are all kinds of political experts who have John Fund, who writes at National Review, has made practically a career writing about voter fraud. That is undertaken for the benefit of Democrats. Now, of course, they're going to deny it. Of course, they're not going to admit it. They are immune from the law in their minds. They're above it. The law doesn't apply to them. They're special. They are our betters. They are the establishment. They are allowed to escape the law here and there, all for the good of the nation, they say. But it's filthy. Folks, it is literally filthy. What the left is doing and has already done to all of these great institutions that people used to believe in, that used to have credibility and authority, moral authority. Now nobody believes in anything anymore. Everybody thinks that something, this or that, at some level of government is rigged or is structured in such a way that certain people are not held accountable while other people are. There's the IRS targeting Tea Party fundraising groups, denying them tax-exempt status. I mean, the examples fill a program. And Obama says things aren't rigged. Didn't the Democrat Party rig the primary election against Bernie Sanders? We know that they did. The Democrat National Committee rigged the primary elections. Bernie Sanders was never going to win the Democrat nomination. I told you that from the first day of that campaign. It was all rigged. The game was set. It makes what Bernie is doing now even more suspect, because Bernie is now learning of Hillary's close ties to the banks, which he was ripping her to shreds on during the primaries, scheduling debates on Saturday night that nobody was ever going to watch. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the blabbermouth Schultz, had to resign the Democrat National Committee because it was learned during the week of their convention how she had rigged the game against Bernie Sanders. And they want to come out and say it's ridiculous for Trump to run around and say these things happened before the elections even happened. He's never run a presidential candidate, do anything like this. That's probably true in a lot of areas in this campaign. But I think it's really, really rich for Barack Obama to tell somebody to toughen up. And if you can't handle a criticism, don't get in the game, from a guy who is babied and pampered and supported and protected by what ought to be a media demanding accountability. We will be back. He doesn't know what tough criticism really is. Really, really rich for our young president to tell Donald Trump to toughen up. Here's Barack Obama, who in 8 years has not had the kind of scrutiny that Donald Trump gets in a week. Donald Trump gets more scrutiny more probing, more investigation, more disagreement, more challenging, more allegations, more accusations than Barack Obama has had to endure in 8 years. Barack Obama and every other Democrat out there is essentially pampered, protected, defended by the same media that is trying to personally destroy not just Donald Trump, but anybody else that pops up in the opposition and might have the slightest bit of a chance of wreaking havoc or doing damage to Democrats. Not just their credibility, but their reputations, their careers, and sometimes even their lives are subject for destruction by the same media that pampers Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, that donates money to them. 96% of all journalists' political contributions have gone to Democrats. F. Chuck Todd hosted a dinner for Hillary campaign workers. What do you think that was about? Various members of the drive-by media host dinner parties and social events for members of Hillary's campaign team. You wouldn't think any coordination be going on there, would you? You wouldn't think that, hey, give me access. Hey, I'm on your side. Hey, treat me well. Hey, I'm with you. You wouldn't think any of that's going on, would you? I look at the kind of treatment that a Republican nominee gets, or your average Republican candidate gets, versus the pampering and the softness and the delicate approach the same media takes to Democrats. You remember in the campaign of 2008, somebody in the drive-by media made a passing humorous reference to Barack Obama's elephant ears. And he complained to Maureen Dowd. I'm very sensitive about my ears. I don't like people going there. And she shouted from the audience, we're trying to toughen you up. Remember that? New York Post, August 13th, 2009. The Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, made the bizarre comparison during a speech to a group of political activists in the capital of Nigeria. Quote, Hillary Clinton, as you may remember, in 2000, our presidential election came down to one state where the brother of one of the men running for president was governor of the state, so we have our problems too. So Hillary Clinton's over in Nigeria acknowledging that, yeah, we've got election fraud in our country too. And we're the guys that can help you run through your problems because we have experience with it too. They think they were cheated out of the 2000 presidential race by the Supreme Court. That election had been certified. There was no way under the law Al Gore was ever going to get Florida, no matter what they did with the recount, because the election had already been certified. But it didn't matter. They kept up the fight. They kept up the allegation that the election was rigged. And when they do it, the media falls right in line and starts finding out who's rigging it. When Donald Trump says the election's rigged, he's accused of being insane and a lunatic and dangerous and needs to be, maybe, picked up by the guys in white coats, put in a little yellow bus, and driven off to the padded room. When the Democrats accuse an election of being rigged, the media gets in line and tries to find out who's doing it. Okay, look, there's much more from this FBI drop here, but I've got to get to the phones. And because people have been patiently waiting, and I invited people to call. We'll get back to all this. We've gotten pretty deep into it, but there's still some other very, very relevant, interesting stuff to go. I want to try to also get to some of the details in the audio sound bites. James O'Keefe's video, Project Veritas, exposing George Soros bought and paid for, Hillary Clinton bought and paid for protesters disrupting Donald Trump rallies, trying to make it look like Trump's supporters are engaging in violence when it was actually homeless people bought and paid for by Hillary's campaign and the Democrat Party that were doing it. But before we get to all that, Smokey in Coronado, California. Smokey, great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Thank you, sir. In 2012, you noted that exit polling showed that 81% of people answered that Barack Obama cared more about people like them than Mitt Romney. My question to you is, how likely is is it that Hillary Clinton, who's literally, Rush, she's driving around and she's not in an ambulance, she's in a hearse, and that black guy that hangs around her is an undertaker. How likely is it that she's going to win that exit poll that says she cares more about people like me? Because I don't think people connect to her at all.
Okay.
My biggest fear is we're going to lose the election and win that exit poll.
Yeah, it's a good question. I need to review this to put it in context, but I need to also explain some things. You're a very funny guy. I have to tell you, you're a very, very funny guy out there, Smokey. But I just want to assure people, an undertaker is not yet following Hillary Clinton around. What he's referring to is that in each of these incidents where Hillary has had an episode, a seizure or a coughing fit or something, there is a large black man who looks like he's part of the security detail who is right next to her. And he's often seen whispering into her ear or patting her on the back and encouraging her to breathe and just keep going, keep talking. Everything's going to be okay. And people are, what the hell is this? He's not there all the time, but he always seems to materialize when she has an episode. So Smokey here, getting creative, is referring to the guy as the Undertaker that follows Hillary. And I just wanted to specify that we are not yet ready to claim that the man's an undertaker. Okay. We want to be factually correct here. Now, what Smokey's referring to is an observation I made. I saw the first wave of exit polls in 2012 at 5 p.m., and I saw two things on it that told me the election was over. The first one was that question. It's an exit poll question. Along the lines of cares about people like me. Obama won that 81-19. Screw that. We're finished. The second question indicated that 60-some-odd% of people who voted still blamed George Bush for the economy 4 years into the Obama administration. So, well, I mean, the economy and Obamacare and our plundering fortunes and the unemployment and the growing number of people out of work, if that's not tied to Obama, then this is not going to change. And Romney's going to lose, and he did. So now the question, okay, we're going to have exit polls. And what Smokey's asking me is if the answer to that question, the exit polling data is the same, if it's like 80% Hillary cares about people like me, 20% think it's Trump, is it going to matter like it did in 2012? And Smokey, I really don't know. I understand what Hillary does not have a personal connection with people, even her supporters, like Trump does or like Obama does. But Smokey, and I don't want to depress you, my friend, but she's still a Democrat, and as such, the Democrats have cornered the market on phony, supposed compassion. And that question, it will be asked again, I'm certain. And I cares about people like me after what they've done to Trump here and the way they keep building Hillary up. We're probably going to be something similar to what it was. The question is, does this election turn on things like that? I'm going to tell you what this election is all about. All this talk about polling data and using the standard historical, traditional ways of judging a campaign, I think are different because Trump doesn't come from the political world. Trump doesn't have a policy record. He doesn't have fingerprints on anything that's going well or badly in the country. So there is nothing that Trump, as the Republican nominee, can be tied to policy-wise. That's why a campaign of personal destruction is occurring on Trump, because there's no other way to go about him. In addition, all of the fingerprints on all the policy stuff, in other words, all the fingerprints on all the stuff going wrong are Democrat fingerprints. Obama, Hillary, I mean, anybody who thinks we're in trouble, it's the Democrats. Trump has nothing to do with it. So, to continue the theme that actually I've been referring frequently to, but really focused on yesterday. What I think this is going to come down to is we're going to find out just how many Americans are fed up with the status quo as defined by the establishment comprised of Republicans and Democrats, political professionals running the country. Is there, of the people who are going to vote, a majority of people who are so fed up and so angry? We're going to find out if all of these crowds, these huge crowds at Trump rallies, we're going to find out if they represent gazillions of people or not. We are going to find out just how many people are not bothered by what's going on in America and are perfectly content for more of it, or either don't know what's going on and haven't informed themselves and as such will vote status quo. We're going to find out how many people, on the other hand, are fed up. How many people who've been, for the last 8 years, voting Republican and being disappointed after every election. We're going to find out how many people among those who traditionally don't vote are fired up enough to vote. If they do, they're voting Trump. The people that don't vote, the people who've never voted, don't vote because they don't think it's going to matter, because they think they're small fry. They think their single vote is not going to determine one single thing. It's not going to matter to who wins or loses, and it's not going to matter to changing the way things are going. These are people that are off the political grid. We're going to find out to what extent they've been energized. We're going to find out to what extent they are motivated and mobilized and loaded for bear to send a message that they're fed up and not taking anymore. We're going to find out. That's what it's not about. Well, it is about Santa Claus in the sense we're going to find out how many people have reached their limit with paying for it. The Democrat Party is Santa Claus to a lot of low-information people. That's what they stand for. The Democrat Party is Santa Claus, and it's tough to beat Santa Claus. I don't know that anybody's ever tried to beat Santa Claus. Has anybody ever run against Santa Claus? And that's how the Democrat Party is seen by a whole lot of people. 94 million Americans are not working, and they're all eating, and they've all got phones, and they've all got TVs, and many of them drive. And they're not working. By that, I mean they're not upset. The job market, whatever, it's apparently not that big a deal. The one thing is how many of them don't have health care. See, I think having health care has become the replacement for what used to be having a job. You didn't have a job that meant the economy was bad, somebody had to pay for it. If you don't have health care today, and likely you don't if you don't work, because Obamacare is not free. And even if you don't have a job, you still have to go somewhere to sign up for it. It's still a pain in the butt to do it. And then you have to qualify for the subsidies. Then you have to go through all the paperwork. It is a pain in the butt to get Santa Claus to give you health care. It's not a pain in the butt for Santa Claus to deliver you a government check. But it is a pain in the butt to get Obamacare. One way or the other, it's spiraling downward out of control. How many people upset by that? We don't hear much about that in the campaign because it's a negative for the Democrats. So, of course, the press ignores it. I think that's what this election is going to show us. I don't think that cares about people like me. It's not correct to say it's not relevant. It always is relevant. But how determining is it in the outcome? We're going to find out. The Republicans are never going to win it in this current atmosphere. They're just not. Their branding has been successfully damaged. I got to go. Back after this. Here's Dave in Downeyville, Indiana. Dave, I'm glad you waited. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hi.
Thank you, Rush. It really is an honor and a privilege to talk to you today.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Oh, thank you. My wife and I were listening to some talk radio out of Indy this morning, and the guy on that station, he was usually really good, but it seemed like he'd given up. My wife looked at me and said, he's thrown in the towel. And I told her, I said, we'll tune into Rush, and he'll renew our hope. And you seemed a little bit agitated at the beginning, and believe me, I know why. And I know you do a lot. You really do. I know you don't like to advise, and you don't get involved that way. But with everything at stake, you know, I can vote and hope that it's counted. But I'm sure you've got Trump's number. I'm sure that you know him personally. You've talked about playing golf with him. With everything that's at stake, maybe it's time that you did do a little advising, especially before this next debate.
Well, I am flattered that you think I would be helpful in that regard. Mr. Trump has a cadre of advisors, and everything I hear essentially is that he doesn't listen to very many people because he's so confident in what he believes and what he wants to do. I mean, he hears it, and he convenes meetings, but how much advice he actually takes and implements is reputed to be not a lot. Look, I provide advice here every day on the program if you want to listen to it in that way. I mean, and I'm sure that Trump's people are scouring all media, and I'm sure he hears things that his people might hear who they, oh, that sounds like it makes sense, and pass it on to him. It's a long way around saying they know where I am. They know how to reach me, and if they want my counsel, they can try. I don't insert myself in those. Look, I've got to go because I don't have much time. This doesn't sound great because I'm not finished explaining this. Let me take it up here again when we get back in the next hour, because this is one little correction here. I may have erred in saying Patrick Kennedy at the State Department proposed the bribe. It looks like, I'm looking at the document here, it keeps flowing in. It looks like somebody unnamed at the FBI floated the bribe. Somebody at the FBI floated a quid pro quo, will reduce the classification if you'll give us access in foreign countries. Still tracking it down. Okay, here's what I want to try to get to in this hour, and I'm not going to be able to get to it all, folks, but here's what I'm going to try. Great Politico, yes, Politico story, why Trump could still pull off a surprise. There is another Politico story today that prints out to a lot of pages about how disgusted a bunch of Democrats are with the last 22 days of the Clinton campaign. And what's about? There are Democrats fit to be tied over what they are learning in the WikiLeaks email document dump about the way they're being spoken of. Democrat donors, like there's this woman, Lady Evelyn de whatever Rothschild, who's apparently a big friend of Hillary and is a big-time Democrat fundraiser, one of Hillary's babes from New York. And apparently she'd been laughed at and joked about and made fun of in these emails, and she's found out about it, and she's livid. And there's all kinds of other examples like this. And it's the Politico that's detailing some of this. It's the Politico that has a story why Trump could still pull off a surprise. There's more from this FBI dump of 100 pages yesterday that detail just what a bad person Hillary is. You get down to it, she's not a good person. She's not nice. You know, my dad told me, so I've never forgotten this, and I've mentioned it to you over the course of this program many times. You can judge the character of a person, man or woman, by watching how they treat people who can't do anything for them. And I grew up never forgetting that. And I watched. I watched people and how they treated other people, particularly those that couldn't do anything for them. Mrs. Clinton treats everybody as though they are low life and beneath her and not worth her time. Everybody working for her, except her close circle of Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin and the rest of them. But staff people at the White House, staff people, State Department, uniformed military personnel, Secret Service, she's just downright mean and inconsiderate, uppity, and rude. These are the people, in many cases, that would take a bullet for her. These are the people who have pledged to save her life, to protect her, and she treats them like scum, folks. She's not a good person. That's why I started calling her Nurse Ratchet. She doesn't smile. And when she does, it's plastered phony. It's one of the reasons why I've never understood why so many people are afraid of her. On our side. I've also shared with you that observation. I know people on our side literally scared to death of her. Like she's superhuman, can't be beaten, or whatever. I remember back in 2008, I remember people, there's a 75, 80% chance she's going to be president. It's going to be. And then Obama comes out of nowhere, and the Democrats instantly choose him. So I'm asking these people telling me that are afraid, well, what happened? I mean, if she's instilling the fear of God in people, how come so many of them abandoned her for Obama? But it has been part of the mystique. So there's that. But I want to get to now the James O'Keefe video from Project Veritas. Because I'm going to tell you, folks, this one is a treasure trove. You know what? If you watch these videos, what you learn is that what the Democrat Party has been about is voter fraud, has been about voter intimidation, has been about rigging the game in any way they can. Trump rally in Chicago. The woman who engineered that rally being canceled is a bought and paid for Democrat activist who ended up bragging to O'Keefe how she did it, including hiring homeless people and send them into the Trump arena or around it and outside it to raise hell, to start fires, to cause problems, to be mean to people. The Democrats buy and pay for this kind of thing, and it's made to look like it's Trump supporters doing it. Ditto out in California when the same thing happened out there. Tried to cancel a Trump rally. Now, no, and I'm gonna answer the caller's question about why did I call Trump and offer some advice. I'm going to do that too. I'm not skating that. I mean, look, it's tempting. I don't know, folks. It's not something I instinctively am inclined to do. They've got their campaign. They've got their people they've hired. It's their business. I'm here every day telling people what I think. They can listen to it, adopt any or all of it if they fit. Up to them. But there's more in explaining the answer to that question. I'll get to it in a jiffy. I want to set all this up with O'Keefe by going back to March 14th of this year. And this is me talking about Trump canceling the campaign event in Chicago due to violent protesters. Obviously, the violence that happened on Friday that resulted in Trump canceling an appearance in Chicago. Folks, let me ask you a question about that very quickly. We're in the primary season. Why are these anarchists and Democrats and leftists, why are they protesting Trump now? And make no mistake, this is all on the Democrats. I think it's unfortunate there are people trying to blame Trump for this. This is traditionally never been a Republican problem. Republican protests don't happen. To your chagrin, how many of you have called me over the years wishing you would see some? You're tired of the Democrats getting away with the protest march. You're tired of the Democrats exclusively being able to shut down events. And make no mistake, this was Black Lives Matter. This was MoveOn.org. This was a rent-a-mob. This mob had been bought and paid for. They were there for the express purpose to shut down the Trump appearance, and they were celebrating after they succeeded in doing so. Okay, March 15th, 2016. See, I know these people, and nothing they do fools me, and that's what it ticks me off when Republicans were joining the fray and blaming Trump supporters. Now, that was part of the campaign, I know. The campaign was still up and running, and there were still people who thought they could win the nomination from Trump, so... But we never unify. We never unify around the single premise of beating these people. And they do. And that's going to have to change at some point. I find it just amazing. We have so many factions of republicanism and so many different factions of conservatism and so many different agendas. We can't even unify around what this is all about. Beating Democrats. Not even that can unify us. It's always been one of the most curious and frustrating things for me as an observer of all this. Okay, so let's go now to the Project Veritas tape. This is the founder, James O'Keefe. He's released a new video entitled Rigging the Election, which investigates Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's campaign, the Democrat National Committee, inciting violence at Trump campaign rallies. In the video, there's an activist named Zulema Rodriguez. Zulema Rodriguez talks about her efforts and says this.
So me and I did the Chicago Trump event where we shut down the light bulbs. Yeah. I just had a call with the campaign and the DNC every day at 1 o'clock. And then we also did the Arizona one where we shut the highway down.
By the way, she's pictured, she's proud, she's happy, she's not hiding. She's very, very honored to have done what she's done, and she's happily photographed. And what she said here, I don't know how well you can hear this. You couldn't, okay. Oh, I only could because of a transcript. Here's what she said. So B and I did the Chicago Trump event where we shut it down like, oh, yeah, I just had a call with the campaign and the DNC. Every day at 1 o'clock, I talked to the campaign and the DNC. And we also did the Arizona one where we shut the highway down. Remember that? I remember that. They shut down the highway so that people getting to a Trump event were stranded and couldn't get there. And they were out there for over an hour, hour and a half. Some of those people were families. Some of them had babies in the car on the way to a Trump event. And it was shut down. They shut down a highway, and there was no way. There were no access roads or alternate routes. And here she's claiming credit for it after having talked to the campaign and the DNC every day at 1 o'clock. Now, the next soundbite, Americans United for Change, National Field Director Scott Fovel. Now, this guy has just been fired, by the way, which doesn't mean diddly squat. They always fire the people once they're like Acorn got rid of people after O'Keefe exposed them. So they fired this guy who you're going to hear. Democratic operative fired after O'Keefe video expose. But he's going to be taken care of financially. He'll be given another job undercover down the road. He'll be doing the same stuff for a different Democrat crowd, different group. And they fire him after he's done his dirty work. So it's mission accomplished. So actually he gets severance and who knows what other goodies. This guy's name is Scott Fovel, Americans United for Change. And again, the theme of this whole video is rigging the election.
There's a script.
Oh, there is a script.
There's a script.
Okay.
There's a script of engagement. Sometimes the crazies bite, and sometimes the crazies don't bite. They're starting confrontations in the line. The media will cover it no matter where it happens.
I assume it's always in the rally.
Initiating the conflict by having leading conversations with people who are naturally psychotic. It's a matter of showing up to want to get into the rally in a Planned Parenthood t-shirt, or, Trump is a Nazi. You can message to draw them out and draw them to punch you.
Okay, let me read that. I don't. Would you have any easier time hearing that? Okay, but I'll still read it. So the journalist here, the Project Veritas secret tapers. Okay, there's a script, and Scott Fovel says there's a script. There's a script of engagement. Sometimes the crazies bite, and sometimes the crazies don't bite. The crazies are Trump supporters here. They're starting confrontations in the line. The media will cover it no matter where it happens. All we've got to do is provoke a confrontation, and media will come cover it. We know that. And the guy says, it's always at the rally? Yeah, the key is initiating the conflict by having leading conversations with people who are naturally psychotic. It's a matter of showing up to want to get into the rally in a Planned Parenthood T-shirt, or, Trump's a Nazi. You can message to draw them out and draw them to punch you. So what this guy's saying, we'll show up wearing a Planned Parenthood T-shirt. We'll show up wearing a T-shirt that says Trump is a Nazi. And we know that some of these psychotics in the Trump crowd they're gonna respond. And once they respond, then we'll throw the first punch and we'll hit them and the media will cover it and look like the Trump people go nuts. That's what this guy is essentially admitting to here. But the point is, they show up attempting to start all this chaos and to make it look like Trump supporters are psychos and crazies and doing the starting. And all they are, they're just nice little Democrats practicing the time-honored American art of dissent. And they're showing up and they're getting beat up and they're being mistreated. And it turns out this guy is explaining how they engineered this to make it all happen. And he continued talking.
I'm saying we have mentally ill people that we pay to do. Make no mistake. Over the last 20 years, I've paid off a few homeless guys to do some crazy stuff. And I've also taken them for dinner, and I've also made sure they had a hotel and a shower, and I put them in a program. Like, I've done that. But the reality is, a lot of, especially in our union guys, a lot of our union guys, they'll do whatever you want. Yeah. They're rock and roll. When I need to get something done in Arkansas, the first guy I call is the head of the AFL-CIO down there, because he will say, what do you need? And I will say, I need a guy who will do this and this, and they find that guy. And that guy will be like, yeah, hell, let's do it.
So this guy is now bragging. Scott Fovel is bragging about hiring mentally ill homeless people to show up at Trump rallies and act mentally ill. And he uses union thugs to find them and do the dirty work. And they buy them dinner and they give them hotel rooms, they give them a shower and so forth so they don't look homeless, and then they send them into the fray. They pay them a little bit, they've bought them dinner or what have you, and they rock and roll. But the point of all this is, none of this would happen at a Trump rally if it were not bought and paid for and engineered. It's a rent-a-mob by Democrat Party activists, people admitting they coordinate with the campaign and the DNC with 1 o'clock phone calls. The thing you have to realize, none of this would happen. Every Trump rally would feature none of this unless the Democrats were paying for it. I think it's a big deal, folks. The media, of course, don't doubt me. The media knows damn well, full well, what's going on here. The media is complicit. They know who these people are. They know that this is how the Democrat campaign operates. They're in on it. They're part of the game. They love it when something goes wrong at a Trump rally because they get to carry forward the narrative that Trump voters are unhinged, that they're angry, that they're people that beat other people up, that they're intolerant. Look, they're beating up on homeless people, for crying out loud. A homeless guy just wanted to hear what Trump's saying, and look at what Trump supporters are doing. That's the way the media covers it. What you need to know, not any of it would have ever happened. None of it's organic. None of it's natural. None of it is real. Every bit of it is bought and paid for. And the people that go into these events or try to protest them outside are given instructions what to do after being paid. They have them on tape here. O'Keefe has them on tape admitting to coordinating with the Clinton campaign. And a prominent Democrat in Illinois, Jan Schakowsky, her husband runs the front group that executes it all. His name is Bob Kramer, and he admits that Hillary knows all about it. You got to hear this when we come back from the break. Okay, on the next audio soundbite, you're going to hear Bob Kramer. Bob Kramer is the husband of Jan Schakowsky. I think she's a former member of Congress from Illinois for the Democrats. She still is or not, I'm not sure, but she's a former elected official, maybe president, but a ranking Democrat. And this guy admits coordinating with the Clinton campaign and that he runs the front group that executes it all. Here's that soundbite.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully in.
And then they tell Hillary, what's going on.
Well, Hillary knows through the chain of command.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting we wait around. We need to start this right away.
Okay.
On every one of these fronts.
Okay.
Hear what he said? This is Jan Schakowsky's husband. The campaign's fully in it. And then they tell Hillary, like, what's going on? Well, I mean, Hillary knows the chain of command. She finds out. Yeah. She finds out what's going on. I'm not suggesting we wait around. We need to start this stuff right away. In other words, we do this without marching orders because they know what the campaign wants. This is Democrats are all unified around this stuff. They leave nothing to chance. They're not going to leave a rally untouched that Trump may end up looking good at. They're not going to leave that to chance. They're going to make sure it blows up so the media has something negative to cover about Trump. Folks, I'm telling you, we have a corrupt media. We have a corrupt government. We have everything about the establishment that runs these events that's corrupt. The corruption is that they try to make you think that everything they televise to you on the news is legitimate, that it really happened and our cameras were there and look what we saw. And then they show you people in a rally and starting fires and beating people up at a Trump rally. What they don't tell you is that every one of those people is paid to be there, hired by Democrats, coordinated with the Hillary campaign. They do not leave. Folks, our side is not even capable of this. Our side doesn't think this way. Our side trusts people. Our side actually wants to win legitimately. They don't care about any of that. They don't care about legitimacy, illegitimacy. Winning is it. They don't care if they end up being a minority. That doesn't matter a whit to them. They're not going to leave. This is not a democracy to them, folks. This is not a representative republic. They don't trust it. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, the Democrat Party do not trust. And you know why? They know that they're in the minority in terms of the way people live and think. And they have constructed lie after lie and illusion after illusion to convince people there's something they're not. And that the Republicans are the real problem, the mean-spirited bigots, and they go out and they create these episodes to make it look just like that. Okay, one more of these, and into the phones we go. The final video, the audio from the Project Veritas video website is Video 1. Scott Fovel, who has been fired, by the way. He is the National Field Director of Americans United for Change. He's a fraud. He engineers fraud. He buys fraud. He pays for fraud. He covers fraud for the drive-by media. They report fraud as legitimate. He has been fired since the video revealed all this. Big whoop after the fact. This is how it works. This is how it works. They admit how it all works. Listen to him explain how the conspiracy winds its way back to the DNC.
I answer to the head of special events for the DNC and the head of the special events and political for the campaign. The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners. Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group. The Fogle Group goes and executes the on the ground. We are the primary mechanism as a team. Democracy Partners is the tip of the spear. I work with Bob Kramer one-to-one all the time. I'm the white hat. Democracy Partners is kind of the dark hat. Bob Kramer is diabolical, and I love him for it.
Bob Kramer, the husband of Jan Schakowsky, elected Democrat from Illinois, he's diabolical, and I love him. So Scott Fovel says, I answer to the head of special events for the DNC and the head of the special events and political for the campaign. The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners, and Democracy Partners pays me, the Fogle Group. And then we go and execute the excrement on the ground. We hire the homeless, and we engineer all the unrest. We engineer the fights. We engineer the fires, the fisticuffs, the protest. We're the primary mechanism as a team. Democracy Partners is the tip of the spear. And Democracy Partners, I work with Bob Kramer one-to-one all the time. I'm the white hat. Democracy Partners, the dark hat. Bob Kramer is diabolical, and I love him for it. Everything you saw at Trump rallies that looked like Trump supporters going nuts was all instigated by bought and paid for Democrat so-called activists. None of it's real, folks. If these people weren't out hiring and paying for this and orchestrating it and giving instructions on what to wear and how to do it and how to incite riots and so on. None of it would be happening because the Trump people don't start anything. Republicans don't do this stuff. We don't even think of doing stuff like this. But it's a Democrat Party way of life. It's a leftist way of life because they can't leave elections to chance. Because they know, folks, that despite the way it may look, a majority of Americans would not support them if they knew who they are. So that's why they have to do all this stuff. Now, there's a second video, mass voter fraud. And in that second video, the Democrats outline exactly how they do voter fraud in national and state elections. They tell O'Keefe, I mean, it's uncanny. They tell O'Keefe how they bus people to the polls without buses, how they pay people to drive individual cars that the Democrats supply, how they, remember the flat tires they caused in Milwaukee? That Obama operatives ripped the tires of buses the Republicans are going to use to get people to the polls? They admit how they use canvassers to find out if people are actually living at an address, and if not, they can vote using that address. How they get Hispanics registered by using businesses who use day laborers. They expose all this with an undocumented alien named Cesar Vargas, who works on getting illegal immigrants to vote. And it's all admitted to by Democrats unaware they're being videotaped. Here's the phones. We go back to Alice in New Hyde Park in New York. Great to have you. I'm really glad you waited. Hi.
Thank you for taking my call, and thank you for all you're doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job at making this all surface. And what I want to say is that I remember distinctly at the end of the FBI investigation, Comey saying there was no evidence of Hillary's intent. Doesn't this prove Hillary's intent?
Oh, for crying out loud. Great point. Abso-freaking-lutely. The whole Look, Alice, we know. I've got 15 things I want to say here in one sentence. I'm going to dial it back. We know. Common sense, intelligence guided by experience tells us, before we know any of this, that Hillary Clinton intended to do exactly what she did. This is just confirming it. And it wasn't just Hillary Clinton. There were all kinds of people intending to rig this whole classified versus unclassified documents on her email thing, on her server thing, so that she could go out and tell a lie and get away with it. They were actually having meetings over declassifying classified documents. These 100-page document dump from the FBI yesterday. Folks, it's loaded. I've only gotten to one aspect of it, and that's the big meeting. But the stories here, Hillary insulted Democrats, flouted security protocols. I've run through those. She was so arrogant, her own security could not stand her. These are the agents for the State Department that kept quitting, refusing to put up with her abuse. FBI docs confirm Hillary treated security details so rudely that senior agents avoided working for her. She would not travel with the ambassador at any foreign location she went to. It's protocol. The ambassador meets you at the airport, gets in a limo with you, goes into town. It's ceremonial. She blew them all off, and only Huma Abedin was ever allowed to get close to her. And, the doctor, whoever this guy is that runs around patting her on the back and saying, keep breathing, it's going to be okay. It's devastating. It is devastating stuff that has been dumped, and I don't know how anybody conclude that she had no intent. But now this 100 pages, there's also a question of, was this part of the investigation? Did Comey, was he involved at this stage when these things were actually happening? But how he didn't know if he wasn't, look, Another one of the 15 things I wanted to say at one time. We now know that, and we should have followed our instincts all along. I told you all along, I never thought this woman was going to get indicted. It wasn't going to happen. I never believed for a minute that the Democrat Party running this country right now with Barack Obama in the White House was going to let his Department of Justice indict her. Remember, we had all these people were talking. Well, he really doesn't like her. And this drip, 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 I even fell for it for a while. This drip, 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 drip stuff. He is trying, to destroy her. He's trying to harm her. BS. He was participating with her in the trafficking of unsecured documents on her server using a fake name. This was never going to go anywhere because it would have included him. And let's face it, folks, Barack Obama has become what Richard Nixon apparently, what we're told Nixon wanted to arrange for himself. Nixon wanted to use all of the agencies of government for his benefit and to be able to use them to harm his enemies. Well, it's happened. It is happening. Richard Nixon never even got close to it. That's why there's so much out. People just don't trust what comes out of Washington these days. And for good reason. It's a shame. All of these once highly reputed institutions now living under a cloud of doubt by the very people who often have relied on them for strength and faith in the government and the fact that everything was on the up and up. It really is a devastating thing. But look, bottom line for this, as far as I'm concerned, is that we know enough now to know that Hillary Clinton has no business being elected president. For all this talk about how Trump is this or Trump is that, the level of corruption and dishonesty here and the using powers of government on your enemies and using them to alter the outcome of events. Yeah, you might be a cynic and say, Rush, it's always happened. Not to this degree. This is the kind of stuff that the conspiracy theorists used to tell us about that people would laugh at. But now we're living it. Yeah, I'm going to have to hold a couple things for tomorrow. The story here, why Trump could still pull off a surprise, from the Politico. And there's a story here from also actually there's two. WikiLeaks reveals long list of media canoodling with Hillary Clinton. This, I get no shock and no surprise, but it's confirmation. And there is this story also from the Politico, 22 toxic days for Hillary Clinton, about Chelsea being livid, Bill Clinton being livid, Hillary ticked off, Lady Lynn DeForester Rothschild, whatever her name is, she's ticked off. All kinds of Democrats ticked off because of the way they're referencing these emails. But, I'm sitting here, I'm going through the program today just recounting what it is that I have learned. And it seems to me that there is much more evidence of systematic vote fraud by Democrats than there is anywhere near a similar amount of racism in America's police departments. We got more Democrat vote fraud than there could ever be racism in American police departments. Where is the DOJ? Well, the DOJ is not going to investigate itself, which would be the Democrat Party. Whew. Tom in San Jose, it's great to have you. I'm glad you waited, and welcome to the program.
Wow, Rush, I can't believe I finally got through. Thank you so much for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
You bet, sir.
So all these emails, all these issues that are coming up, I agree with you completely. It's a terrible, egregious abuses of power. And the fear that I have and we have out here is that it's going to be, so what, one more scandal, throw it on the pile. There'll be investigations, there'll be hearings, 6 months, 8 months, and then nothing will happen. And that's what we're so mad about. And I think that's how Trump can get back in front of the narrative. I think he needs to own the reality TV, and he needs to own The Apprentice and his line, "You're fired." I think in the debate and anywhere on the stump, I think if we think back over the major scandals over the past year with the IRS and the VA and the CIA scandals, all these issues, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And I think Trump can own those by saying, look, is there anybody here, anyone with a pulse, that doesn't think that people in the IRS need to hear the words, you're fired? People will just blow up about that. Of course, that's what we miss. That's how he gets back in. VA. What about these amazingly egregious things that happen in the VA?
I don't know.
And,
I honestly don't know. I don't know what he should do during debate, to tell you the truth, folks. See, but if it were me, I would have an agenda, but I would also include reacting to what she does, which I have the presence of mind and knowledge and confidence to be able to do. I don't know that I would go about it this way. I have to think about that. Anyway, I wish I'd have gotten to you sooner because we're out of time, and I really don't have any flexibility here. I've got to go. All right, that's it. I'm sorry, my friends, that we're out of time. I left a lot of stuff on the sidelines, but I've got it all segregated right here. Get to it. Este mañana. Bye-bye, puppy. See everybody back here tomorrow.